Chapter 7. Jessica sat down at her desk at work the next morning and dumped the armful of mail that she carried into the inbox. She turned around and saw a familiar message stuck to a sticky note on her screen. 7:30, LaSalle's Casino after, meet you there. Jessica had a standing date with Kevin DeWitt every Friday night. During sports seasons for the last 4 years, that generally meant the two of them would attend whatever ball game Philip had been playing in, followed by dinner, and often a trip to the nearby Riverboat Casino. She grabbed the note off her screen and considered whether to call the date off. She set the paper down, grabbed her fish food and sprinkled some flakes in the top of her tank. I know, fishes, I know. I need to tell him it's not going to work out. Sooner is better than later, don't you think? Jess, honey, don't you think it's a little early to be talking to your fish? Emma said with a smile at the door. Jessica blushed and said, it's going to be one of those days, Em, and I can smell it coming. As if to respond in agreement, the scanner in Bill's office squawked out several tones, and the dispatcher put out a call for emergency services. Emma and Jessica walked from her office to Bill's, reaching just after the call had ended. Sounds like a bad one on 61. Bill said. Called out both ambulances, and they called for E.G. Emma looked over at Jessica with a pained expression, and quietly said, I hope it's not one of ours. E.G. Green served was one of the two local funeral home directors, and was the county's coroner, called to the scene of every fatal accident. Jessica said, okay, well I've got it. Em, you might check my mail to see if there's anything that can't wait. I told you it was going to be one of those days. Jessica grabbed her camera and headed south on Highway 61, and as she saw the flashing lights of the emergency cars in the distance, a gnawing pit of fear and despair deep inside of her. She had never talked to Bill and Emma about how much she hated this part of her job. She hadn't told them how working a fatal car accident brought back the nightmares, how it meant a week of sleepless pacing. She pulled up to where the rescue squad was stopping traffic, and they waved her past. She parked, got out of the car, grabbed her camera and started walking towards the accident. Jessica could see an overturned vehicle lying off the road to the side in the ditch. She walked forward and saw one of the local highway patrol officers. Walking over, she said, Hey Mike, what we have here? Hey Jess, this is a bad one, they are extracting now. I can't tell you who yet. But, Jessica got a good look at the vehicle, recognizing the distinct paint job immediately, and quietly said, Yeah, okay, I see. Did she have her little boy with her? Yeah, she did. The patrolman answered. This is a real bad one. Jessica had trained herself years ago to put away her emotions, because that's the only way she could get through the horror of a scene like this one. Working with the highway patrolman, she took pictures of the scene from all angles, which he would later use in his official report. She also took a picture of the truck as it was being towed out of the ditch, for publication in next week's edition. During a break in the extraction, she put in a call to the office. Hey, Emma, it's Jess. Yeah, it's one of ours, Lucy Nickerson and her little boy. Yeah, it's not good. Looks like a deer jumped out on her, and she lost control when she swerved. Yeah, I am okay. I will be back when I can. Jessica stopped by her house to change out of clothing that had become muddy during the morning's events. She held up well until she saw a picture of her parents out of the corner of her eye. The tears came, and did not stop for a very long time. Jessica checked her watch for the 6th time. 7:52, Kevin was 22 minutes late now. That means he's probably going to be here in about 10 more minutes. It hadn't taken her long to learn that if Kevin had said he would be somewhere at a certain time, you could safely add 30 minutes at least to that time before you had even a chance of seeing him. Jessica liked to call his perpetual tardiness Kevin's standard time. Hey, sorry I am late, he said, employing his standard greeting. Actually, Jessica replied with an acidic smile, you are only 23 minutes late, which means you are really 7 minutes early. Yeah, Kevin said with his best little boy smile. Let's order, I am starving. Jessica nodded to her waiter, who turned and went into the kitchen. You are having chicken parmesan, she said. It will be here in about 5 minutes. I am having the same. Girl, you know me all too well, he said. I am sorry I was late. Really? I could tell you all about it, and plead my case, but it wouldn't do any good, would it? Jessica didn't even stop to consider his question. Without looking in his direction, she took a sip of her wine and in an offhand manner replied, "No. I learned a long time ago that you were thoughtless and rude enough to constantly be late. It goes with the package. Don't you think that's a little harsh?" Kevin responded, "I heard what happened to Lucy and her boy. I knew you were having a hard one today." "Yeah, it was hard, and I don't want to talk about it," Jessica said. Spotting the waiter out of the corner of her eye, she cut the conversation off with, "Here's our food. I am not in the mood to talk anyway." They ate in silence, and when the meal was finished, Kevin leaned forward and studied Jessica's face. "I know this may not be a good time to bring this up, but I have been thinking about it a lot lately." "I have been thinking about things about us a lot lately too, Kevin," she replied. Throughout the dinner, she had found herself thinking about nothing other than getting it over with so she could go see David. "Good," he smiled, "I hoped you had." "Jess, I think it's getting to be time we started thinking about making us permanent, don't you? Let's go to the jewelry store tomorrow to pick out a ring. One with a big rock." Jessica heard the words coming out of Kevin's mouth, but the impact of what he was saying took a moment to register. "No?" Kevin cocked his head and looked at her, caught completely off guard. "No? What do you mean?" "I mean no," she said softly, but with a note of firmness in her voice. "I don't understand, Jess," Kevin said. "We've been getting along really well lately, and since Philip is gone away to school and things have settled down some at the office, we have time for each other now." "What's going on, Jess? Talk to me." Jessica looked into the strong, masculine face of the man whom she had dated for years, the man who had been her lover and confidant. "I don't want to hurt you, Kevin, but I don't love you. I have never been in love with you, and I can't imagine that I ever will be. I am sorry." Kevin DeWitt leaned back against his chair and looked at her thoughtfully. "I am sorry I was late, okay? You don't need to do this, I get your message. I will try to do better in the future." Jessica let out a long sigh of frustration and looked Kevin square in the eye. "This has nothing to do with the fact that you were late, Kevin. I don't love you. I never will. I am sorry, that's all there is to it." "I am sorry, too, Jess," Kevin said. "I shouldn't have brought this up today, I know better. I should have waited until you were not all stressed out over the accident." Jessica had to stifle the urge to scream and throw things. This was so like Kevin. He wasn't listening to a word she was saying. He never did. She got up and grabbed her purse. She stuck out a hand, which Kevin grabbed instinctively for a handshake, and she said in her most formal business voice, "Kevin, I wish you the best of luck. Take care of yourself. Goodbye." She walked out the door without looking back. Jessica drove away from LaSalle's restaurant and realized that the night was young, and she had absolutely nowhere to go and nothing to do. "Well," she thought, "I may as well go do something productive." She went to her house, changed into her work clothing, and drove herself up the hill to Riverview House. The front door was still wide open, and there were lights on down the long hallway to the rear of the first floor. Jessica carefully walked into the room, and saw David standing looking carefully at the mantel on the fireplace. "Hi," he said without looking up. "I figured you would be out with your lawyer friend on a Friday night." Jessica sighed, and sat down cross-legged on the floor. "He asked me to marry him tonight." David turned and looked at her thoughtfully. "Are congratulations in order?" "No." David walked over to her, and joined her on the floor. "Want to talk about it?" Jessica looked at David with a tilted head. "Have you ever been in love?" "Yeah, I have." "I never have," she said quietly. "I tried really hard to be in love with Kevin, but it just doesn't work that way. I know I was attracted to him, but..." She started drawing a heart in the white dust that was now covering everything on the first floor of the house. "Last year I went to Bill and Emma's 40th wedding anniversary. I think half the town was there. You should have seen the two of them dance. It was like they were one person, floating across the floor like they were on air. They have complete trust, and they are each other's best friends. I know that they really will be married, heart and soul, until death do they part. I want that." "Yeah," David said, thinking back to the days that he had felt that kind of love in his heart for a woman. Jessica stood up from the floor, dusted herself off and walked over to one of the shade-less windows. "I didn't love Kevin. I don't know if I will ever be able to love anybody," she rasped, fighting back tears. David stood and walked over behind her. He reached out and put his hand on her shoulder, which quivered under his touch. She turned and placed her head on his chest, and again the tears came. "Sorry about that, it's been a bad day," she said after composing herself. "I know what bad days can be like, trust me," he said. "Today wasn't a great day for me, either." Said, "I am finding out just how much work I have to do here, and well, it's getting hard to deal with." Jessica looked at David with a note of concern, and for the first time, she noticed the lines of tiredness in his face. "You need a break from this, David," she told him. "I don't have time to take a break. I have too much to do and the clock is ticking," he replied. "You know," Jessica told him with a smile, "there's a way we could kill two birds with one stone. You need some time off, but you also need to make progress on the house. Let's go across the river tomorrow and do some shopping. We can take the book with us and go to the home improvement stores and see how well we can get things to match." David smiled at the thought of spending some time away from the dirt and dust with this lovely, and now quite available, young woman. "That," he said, "sounds like a plan." The longer that Kevin digested the events of the evening, the more angry he became. How dare the woman turn him down? There were 100 other women that he knew personally who would jump at the chance to become his wife. Kevin drove his green two-door luxury sedan around town and did some hard thinking. The one thing that he had never considered when he decided to ask for her hand was that she would turn him down. It was unthinkable. It was, he was sure, also his fault for asking her on what was obviously a bad day. Come to think of it, she looked a little puffy too. It was probably that time of the month as well. Well, just like in a trial, when things go badly one has to engage in damage control, he thought. Tomorrow, some flowers and a heartfelt note should do the trick nicely.